You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast. It's season 2, episode 34. Contreras and the Cardinals come to town. Don't forget to listen, download, review, most importantly, subscribe to our podcast. Follow us on the socials, Fly the W670 on Twitter and Instagram, Fly the W on Facebook, or email flythew670gmail.com. All right, Crawly. The Cubs were the beneficiaries. They took 2 of 3 from the Marlins this weekend at Wrigley. We're Sunday afternoon when we're recording this after the, I don't know, what do you want to call it, a marathon of a game on Sunday afternoon that did not go the Cubs' way. But let's start with Friday afternoon, day game, just like God intended it, as you would like to say. Justin Steele on the mound.
Yeah, we got a couple things to kind of take a look at. Number one, Justin Steele, what can you say? I thought he had a really look sharp this start. 7 innings pitched. He gave up 6 hits, 1 run, 0 walks, 4 Ks. He has now allowed 2 or fewer earned runs in 14 straight starts dating back to July 22nd, 2022. He's tied with Max Fried for the longest active run in MLB. It also ties Jake Arrieta, who also did it 14 times between 2015 and 2016. But that date, July 22nd, 2022, when his streak started, he's posted a 1.24 ERA. And so it's just absolutely unbelievable. He's tossed 6 innings or more in 6 of his 7 starts this season. I mean, I know it's only been slightly over a month, Dustin, but this guy looks absolutely like he would be in the All-Star game. And the question you've got to ask yourself is he somebody that could potentially start the All-Star game?
Right. Now, that's where I was going to go, Crawly. Not only is he an All-Star right now on May the 8th? May the 8th. He is also arguably a potential guy to start the All-Star game. And again, what is so great about this is the homegrown factor, right? It's so long the Cubs have been getting beaten up, and rightfully so, by the way, for not being able to develop a homegrown pitcher. Well, I'll tell you what, Justin Steele now is the poster boy, if you will, for a homegrown Cubs pitcher.
And one thing that I also love is his teammates, man, are just kind of rallying around him. It was pretty cool. Stroman wrote that Wrigley was rocking and Steele is the best pitcher in baseball. I mean, and then he called him Cy Steele is what he called him. Jamison Tyone, what a day at the park. Great pitching, great defense. Jay Steele, 21, got that dog in him. So, you know, they're loving it. And it was good to see Michael Fulmer in that game have a hold and Mark Leiter with the save. So Friday, to me, was a really good game. That's the game you want to see the Cubs play. Saturday and Sunday, not so much, but we'll get there. The offense, the offense on Friday, 4 runs on 8 hits, the biggest, a 2-run homer by Ian Happ in the 5th, his 4th of the season. He's been .310 with 3 home runs since April 14th, and he's reached base in 28 of the 31 games he played in. Also made a great defensive play in the 4th to preserve the Cubs' 1-0 lead at the time. 2 on, 2 outs. Chaz Chisholm hit a line drive to left. Happ made a nice catch on the warning track. And again, this is similar to the Steele question. Does it look like Happ can repeat as an All-Star and a Gold Glover after 1 month? I'm saying yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, Friday afternoon, yes. Friday afternoon, he looked like a Gold Glover, an All-Star in left field. Now, as you mentioned a second ago, Saturday and Sunday, not so much, but that was a fantastic play in left field on Friday afternoon.
Yep, and then the big news of the day, you had 2 Cubs making their debut at Wrigley Field. Miguel Amaya caught all 9 innings and was 0 for 2. Scary moment, he got hit by a pitch, but he's okay. I just get nervous with him because of the injury history. And then Matt Mervis made his major league debut plus his Wrigley debut. He played first and went 1 for 4, recording his first MLB career hit, an insurance run, RBI in the 8th inning. And Dustin, the hit was 111 miles per hour off the bat. I mean, he just absolutely, the guy just hits the ball hard. He crushed
it. Mash, they're calling him Mash Mervis, right? Didn't his old man, didn't the dad have a shirt that said Mash across the chest, right? The family's loving it. The family's loving it. I believe his father is going to be a guest on the Parkins and Spiegel show, maybe as soon as tomorrow on The Score, but definitely this week. And I thought Marquis did a wonderful job not only with him, but we're going to get to it in the next game with Amaya's parents. And it just really, really did a great job with the storytelling.
Right. The thing about Mervis, too, that hit, that 111.2 miles per hour, that was the 5th hardest hit of the season for the Cubs. So think about that. The guy's been here one day and he's already got the 5th hardest hit. And you know what? It ain't going to be the hardest one. He'll have the hardest by the end of the year.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt about that. Yeah, he's fun to watch. A little too many strikeouts. We had a good debate on Friday morning when we knew that he was coming up. And again, he got the hit. He got the RBI. I just wondered out loud, as usual. I said, if I were in charge of the Cubs, I would have held him back on Friday. I would have started him on Saturday and Sunday. I would have held him back on Friday for a pinch hit situation. I want to make sure his feet get underneath him. You know, he's struck out. He's struck out quite a few times so far. But, hey, they put him in there. They had him DHing on Friday. What was he, batting 7th, I believe? 6th or 7th, right? Mm-hmm. And, listen, if you go 1 for 4 every game with an RBI, it's going to be pretty good. It doesn't matter how many times you strike out. If you go 1 for 4 every game with an RBI, you can live with that.
Not only that, the Marlins have a lot of good pitching. And again, that's what I always told everybody is that, you know, when you want these guys like Morel and Marvis called up, they're not facing this in AAA. This is a whole different ball of wax here. So there's going to be some growing pains, and hopefully, you know, he kind of learns to adjust, and that's what we're all kind of hoping for here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he was a lot of fun, and you know, we're going to get into it in the next segment, but I'm curious to hear what you thought of when Matt Mervis came up to bat on Saturday afternoon, because you were at that game. All right, are we ready, Crawly? So game 1, fly the W. We talked about that game. Let's move into game number 2. That was on Saturday afternoon, as you would like to say, as God intended it. Let's talk about game 2. It was also, Crawly, the 25th. I mean, we are getting old, man. 25th anniversary of Kid K. And I want to ask you about that in a second, so don't get too ahead of your skis here. Kid K striking out 20 against the Astros. 2 Hall of Famers in that lineup, Bagwell and Biggio. The 25th anniversary. I had just started working in sports talk radio part-time. I was also cutting lawns for Wiley Quality Lawn Care, okay, out of Elmhurst. And I remember that day. It was like a cold, grayish day in the western suburbs. And it was like too early to cut lawns like full time. So we were like mulching people's lawns. And I remember I was like scraping out the back of this guy's truck, Scott Wiley. I'm scraping out the back of his truck, Wiley Quality Lawn Care, shoveling mulch, listening to that game in the rain. So him and I texted on Saturday. Remember where you were on this day?
I was in college. I was at Eastern Illinois University, and I was coming back to eat some lunch, and then I had another class at 2:00. And I turned on WGN, was watching the game, and I said, "This is amazing." I'm like, he had a no-hitter going, obviously. Matt. I'm like, well, I'll just kind of wait around until someone gets a hit, and then I'll go to class at 2:00. No big deal. Let's just say I never made it to class.
Never made it to class.
And so I will say this: I went to an event Friday night with my friend Stuart McVicker from Club 400. The Kerry Wood Foundation held an event for their charity, and they do a lot of great things. And the guests of honor were Pat Hughes and obviously Kerry Wood, and the two of them spent 30 minutes kind of recounting that special day. And you know how Pat can spin a yarn, and Kerry's really funny. It was so awesome to hear that and to kind of relive that from the two guys, you know, Pat, who was there and, you know, calling that game that day, and Kerry, who threw it. And it was just so nostalgic. It was so awesome to be at that. And then I went to the game on Saturday, and the man who made the K signs, there were
yes, that's what I want to ask you about. So that the K sign thing, yeah.
Yeah. So the one who did that, he was my middle school PE teacher, and he was my brother's high school wrestling coach. His name was Tom Bujnowski, and he was just an awesome guy, very influential on me as a Cub fan. And he unfortunately passed away, but his son Jake is kind of taken up the mantle of the Cub fandom, and so he actually brought a couple of the original Ks from that game to Wrigley Field. And I got to see Jake. It was very emotional. Like I said, the family, his dad meant a lot to me, and just everything with the K's and that the anniversary of the game. It was really, really kind of awesome to see Jake and I took a picture with Jake and one of the K signs. So it was really cool.
Do you have one of these K signs in the Crawly collection or no?
I do have one of the K signs. I'm one of the Baseball Hall of Fame has 2. The Cubs have 2, and then 3 of us. I have 1. Another guy has 1, and Jake has the rest. So I do.
Look at you. Look at you. I asked that question blindly. I didn't know. So God bless you. All right. So Crawly, we had Drew Smiley on the mound that day. Let's talk about game number 2.
Yep, the Cubs with this one 4-2, and Dustin, sometimes you get the results are good, but sometimes you worry a little bit about how you got those results. A win's a win, right? But there are concerning trends I'm looking at in this game. The Marlins changed their game plan before the game even started. They decided to go with an opener instead, Matt Barnes, and then make it a bullpen game. So I was
trying to figure. I was, as a fan sitting on my couch, Crawly, and not crawling all over social media, I was trying to figure out what the hell they were doing.
Yeah, they used 7 pitchers, including scheduled starter Brian Hoeing. He was the one that was supposed to go, but he was the only pitcher to pitch multiple innings, 3 innings total. But through 7 innings, the Marlins pen gave up 1 run. And it looked like it was going to work, that plan, because the Cubs, again yesterday and again today, runners in scoring position. In the bottom of the first, Cubs had runners on second and third and 1 out. But Seiya and Cody Bellinger both struck out to end the threat, so you couldn't get a run with runners at second and third and 1 out. In the bottom of the thirds with 2 on and no outs, Swanson and Happ both struck out, and Suzuki flied out to end the threat. They cashed in a run when Bellinger doubled to lead off the inning, and Matt Mervis, there he is again, drove him in his second RBI in 2 games to cut the Marlins' lead to 2-1. But then more runners in scoring position problems in the bottom of the 7th with the bases loaded and 2 outs. Seiya Suzuki struck out. Seiya had a rough day at the plate. He went 0 for 4, 2 Ks, and left 8 runners on base. He was supposed to get the day off. He wasn't in the starting lineup on Sunday, came in later in the game. But here's the thing that you can also say is that the Cubs are the comeback kids. They do not give up ever. And that was really the biggest takeaway from this weekend for me. The Miami meltdown in the 8th, up 2-1. The Marlins call in their stud closer, A.J. Puck, in the 8th. He hasn't blown a save. He hasn't gotten a loss all year. He's a lefty. And Marlins manager Skip Schumacher, he wants him to face a lot of the lefties that were coming up. He had Bellinger that inning, Mervis that inning. So it wasn't the 9th inning. He had him come in the 8th. But the Marlins have a really good bullpen, so it looked like a good plan. But then the Marlins defense completely falls apart. Bellinger leads off and hits a ball that hit off Puck's glove. He picks it up, fires it to first, but Yuli Gurriel drops the throw. So that was 1 out that they didn't get there. Then Trey Mancini hits a ball to shallow right, but right fielder Peyton Burdick loses the ball in the sun. It hits him off the leg and goes for a quote-unquote double. Baseball's got to do something to fix things like that. That's ridiculous that they would call that a double.
You're right.
Runners at second and third. Mervis strikes out, but then Magical hits one to short right, and both runs score. And then Burdick throws it way over the catcher's head to allow Magical to advance to second, and the Cubs take a 3-2 lead. And then Miguel Amaya, pinch hitting for Tucker. Barnhart hits a soft grounder that goes under the glove of shortstop Xavier Edwards. Magical never stops running. Great hustle. He scores from second, which gives the Cubs a 4-2 lead. That's it for Puck, and because of the defense behind him, he was charged with a loss and a blown save. So the Cubs got their first win of the season when trailing entering the 8th inning. So they're only 1-11 in that category. Not great. You hope that evens out as the season goes around. But, again, cheers to the never giving up. But Drew Smiley didn't have it that game either. That was probably one of the
short outing.
He had 30-some pitches in the first inning, but he did grind it out. He went 3.1, 3 hits, 2 runs, 3 walks, and 5 Ks. So he got the no decision, but it snapped a streak of 5 starts during 5 innings, allowing 2 or fewer runs. But the bullpen was sharp. Rucker went 1.2 scoreless. Keegan had a rough road trip. He went 3 innings, gave up 1 hit, and had 2 strikeouts. He was hitting mid-90s, Dustin, on a lot of pitches that I was watching this feed gun. He looked better than I saw him in a long time. I really liked what I saw out of Keegan in that game. Like I said, after that rough road trip where he struggled and blew a couple saves and got a couple losses. The other thing I liked, Adbert closing out a game. I thought he looked really, really good.
I liked him in that role, Crawly. I really liked him in that role.
Ross was asked about it after the game. He would not commit to anyone being a closer in the post-game press conference. So still closer by committee.
Yeah, closer by committee. All right, so good news, Crawly. They've won the series, right? They take game 1. They take game 2. They go for the sweep in game 3. Hayden Wesneski on the mound.
Yeah, Hayden versus Sandy Alcantara. And if you looked at Sandy's ERA, sometimes that can be deceiving again so early in the season, especially for pitchers who don't play every day. It looked like the ERA was higher than normal, but if you looked at the game logs of Sandy, he was getting better and better. It was a fantastic pitching matchup. I think Hayden Wesneski pitched what I thought was the best game of the season. I've been talking about how he's been winning a lot of games, but it just didn't look the same to me. The results were good, but things just kind of looked off. This time he went 6 innings pitched. He gave up 5 hits, 1 run, no walk, 6 Ks. But that slider, which is really his bread and butter pitch, hasn't looked sharp.
Yep.
That was really on. I mean, unfortunately, he gave up a cheap basket shot. I thought of you, Dustin, to Yuli Gurriel in the 5th. As I tweeted out, the basket giveth and the basket taketh away.
Yes, it does.
But Sandy Alcantara had his best start of the season. He dominates the Cubs for 8 innings, gave up 6 hits, no walks, 9 Ks. The guy's dotting the corners, hitting 98 to 100. So I'm not going to get too angry at that situation. I mean, he looked like an ace. And when look, I got mad in the National Series because it was Patrick Corbin and some rookie making his debut. And what was the guy that from the Cubs from last year that they traded, or the guy from the Javi Baez trade that they had?
Yeah.
It's just garbage pitchers. I don't like when they can't hit garbage pitchers. But Sandy Alcantara is Trevor Williams. That's what I was thinking of. But Sandy Alcantara, I mean, he's a great pitcher, and he looked the part today. But again, comeback Cubs, second time in as many days. In the 9th, Alcantara, his pitch count's getting up there, right? With 1 out, Happ singles. Now, to me, I thought Schumacher was going to go to Puck, the lefty, right? Because you got Cody Bellinger, you got Mervis, you got Eric Hosmer, you got all these lefties. So why not go to Puck after, he gave up the hit? Happ singles, and then Cody Bellinger doubles, and the Cubs now trail 2-1. And then with the infield drawn in, Hosmer punched 1 and the game's tied. So super excited. And not only that, they came back when they were down 1 run in the 10th on an RBI single by Nico Horner and by Happ in the 13th. So there's no quit in these Cubs. That's what you say, the no quit Cubs, man. And I love to see that out of this team.
Yep. Listen, that is something that is a credit to David Ross as well, right? And each and every one of those players. But yeah, the no quit thing is fantastic.
Yeah, when I know I'm critical of David Ross, and sometimes, and this happens with a lot of managers, there's some guys that are better in-game managers, and there are other guys that create good clubhouse. They put guys, good accountability. The atmosphere is what you need to be. And so, hopefully, like I said, Ross continues to improve in the in-game decisions, and that comes with experience. But but the one thing about this team that drives me nuts is something I was worried about in the offseason, and something that's why they look so good in April. In April, especially mid-April, they looked really good with runners in scoring position. Ever since they went to Miami a week and a half ago, it hasn't looked as good. First off, I do want to say something, Dustin. I complained about that, that not being an error when the outfielder lost the ball in the sun.
Right.
Puck. The other thing is the balk rule. That has to be the dumbest rule in the game. For those of you that did not watch the game, they went 14 innings, and it was Alzolay on the mound and a runner on third, and he barely twitched his glove, and they called a balk on that. That's not the intent of the rule. The intent of the rule is to prevent deception, to fake like you're going to pitch or do something. There was none of that, and I think that was just ridiculous.
Well, I think they were just trying to, at that point, get the hell out of Wrigley. That's what I think.
Either way, though, as much as that was a dumb rule, the Cubs were 3 for 20 with runners in scoring position and left 13 on base. I mean, that's the story right there. And with the game tied at 3 in the bottom of the 10th and the runners at the corners and 2 outs, Ian Happ popped out, slams his bat on the ground. In the bottom of the 11th, runners at second and third, Mancini reached on a fielder's choice and Happ's thrown out at home. Mervis grounds out to end the threat. In the bottom of the 12th, and a runner at third with 2 outs, Nico grounded out. And in the 13th, with runners at first and second, Trey Mancini lined out with 2 outs. So you had a lot of opportunities
Lots of
to walk it off.
opportunities. Yep, lots of opportunities.
I mean, just with the Manfred man, you automatically have a really good chance. But when you have runners at third and less than 2 outs and you can't get it in, that's going to kill you every time. And so, again, this runners in scoring. I want to say that I thought the bullpen looked really, really good after looking really, really bad the last on the road trip. The only thing that freaks me out about this game, and I guess the reason I'm so frustrated about it, you used a lot of pitchers out of that bullpen, and there's a lot. You used Fulmer for 1, Boxberger for 1. Merriweather looked, I thought, really good for 1 inning. Leiter went 2 innings and continues to look absolutely phenomenal. And then Adbert Alzolay went 3 innings and looked phenomenal. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to use Leiter and Alzolay tomorrow, so you're looking for a big start. But we'll get into that when we start about the Cardinals series. But
we will get into that. Yeah.
All in all, a good series for the Cubs to take 2 of 3.
Hey, they took 2 of 3. You can't complain about that. Of course, we would have liked the sweep. You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast. It's season 2. It's episode number 34. In this segment, our guy Crawly is talking to Sam Weiderhaft of the Pelicans, the minor league team from Myrtle Beach. And we're going to find out exactly what is going on the beach with our minor league Cubs.
It's time for our Down on the Farm segment where we head down to Low A Myrtle Beach to talk with Sam Weiderhaft, the voice of the Myrtle Beach Pelicans. How you doing today, Sam?
Doing great, Crawly. Always a pleasure to join the show and excited to talk some Pels baseball with you.
Yeah, man, we were talking. It's a beautiful day at Wrigley, and it looks like it's a beautiful day in Myrtle Beach, huh?
Yeah, I mean, early May is kind of the best part to be in Myrtle Beach because, it's not too humid yet. Like you start get to June and July and you get that really hot weather, but about 78 degrees here today. It's going to be like that for the rest of the week. And the Pelicans come home next week for the first. We've been on the road 2 weeks and we come back home next week. So just going to be great weather. And you can't beat it over here.
You got to be ready to get home though. Like you said, get off the road a little bit and kind of get back to some home cooking, right?
Well, so I don't travel with the team. When they go, they're there and I'm back in Myrtle Beach. So I'm happy to have them back and actually start broadcasting again. And, we've only had about 7 or 8 home games in the first 24 or 25 games. So just excited to see these guys again and see the leaps they've made just early in the season.
Well, taking a look right now at the Carolina League South, you got Columbia in first place at 16-10, but you guys are right there in second, 14-11. You're 1.5 back, and you got a little 2-game winning streak, 6-4 in the last 10. So, tell us a little bit about Myrtle Beach and what's been going on since the last time we talked.
Well, it's just kind of apparent that early in the season we're just finding ways to, stay above 500 and finding ways to win ball games. I think about Saturday night's game against Columbia. That was a comeback victory, 3-2 in 11 innings, and Raybaj Garcia has a big single in the top of the 11th to give the Pelicans the victory there. And we go and play Charleston on the road, a 7-game series there because there was a doubleheader involved in that series. And traditionally, the past 2 years, the River Dogs have been the top team in the league and one of the top teams in minor league baseball. And, we took 5 of 7 against them. Now, it does look like they've taken a little bit of a step back this year, but, still, when you take 5 of 7 against any team in minor league baseball, that's pretty impressive. So, just finding ways to win ball games. And, this young group of hitters is starting to really, make some improvements, and you can really see it in real time. And then the starting pitching that we've had has been pretty impressive so far with the bullpen, making strides as well.
Yeah, I did want to talk to you. So Friday, right? You guys played Friday, and that was a start for Jackson Ferris. So he wasn't on the team when you guys first got started, opened up. Jackson Ferris was the pick right behind Cade Horton. Talk to me about Jackson Ferris. I mean, he went Friday 3 innings pitch, no earned runs, right? 1 walk, no hits, 1 and 7 Ks. So not bad, eh?
You can't have a better debut than what Jackson did on Friday night against the Fireflies, especially the way that Columbia was hitting the ball coming into that game. They had 2 double-digit run performances coming into it, and then Jackson just shuts it down right out of the gate. Strikes out 7 of the first 10 batters he faces and just zips the fastball into about 95 miles per hour right in the zone. Has got a great-looking curveball, and has got a really good slider, too. Now, he didn't show it too much in the Columbia game, but just what I've been hearing is that slider also just looks incredible. So Talking with our manager, Buddy Bailey, he said that Jackson Ferris is the real deal. And I cannot wait to see him when he gets back to Myrtle Beach. And, he's certainly going to be the guy to watch in this starting pitching staff. That's for sure. And I mean, I just haven't seen, you don't see too many 19-year-olds completely skip out on the complex and go right to full season baseball, but that's exactly what he did. So you can tell the Cubs think of him very highly, and he really showed it in that first start.
So we're talking about Jackson Ferris and the guy drafted in front of him, Cade Horton. I mean, 4 games started, 1.26 ERA. I mean, just looking like a first-round draft pick.
Yeah, you can't say enough about him. He's done exactly what he's expected to do here in Low A, and then some. The strikeout numbers are great, and just no one's catching up to that slider. I mean, he's just missing so many bats with it. And then he's also added this. I mean, his fastball is coming in 97, 98 miles per hour. And that first home game that he started at Pelicans Ballpark, we didn't have the radar gun going, so I couldn't see anything. But our video guy texts me in the middle of the first inning and says, Cade's throwing 98 right now. So I was like, okay, that's probably going to get the job done, and it has so far. He's got a great mound presence, and just a great guy in general. I've spent the past couple of weeks kind of getting to know him, and we did a big project on him a few weeks ago, and is just ready to show out in the Cubs organization, and this is certainly going to be a big year for him. Nice.
Now, the guy that you got going today, Brody McCullough. Tell me a little bit more about Brody.
Well, Brody just knows how to pitch. He's an experienced player that was drafted last year out of Wingate University in Division II. But you look at his Wingate numbers, and the strikeout to walk ratio is just absurd. I mean, his senior year numbers, struck out over 100 and only walked like 25 guys. I mean, he knows where to put the ball in the zone. And, he goes up there with confidence. He misses bats. He attacks hitters, and just has a great approach. So excited to see what he does on the bump today against the Fireflies. But yeah, he's been a great guy. That last arm in the rotation, typically starting about Saturday or Sunday, and just fills up the zone. I mean, he just knows how to throw strikes, which at this level, a lot of the guys are trying to find that command, and it's pretty clear that Brody already has that.
Now, question, you were talking a little bit about the bullpen and how it's kind of starting to come together. 2 guys that I've been watching, Mariano Santi and Jonathan Okendo. Is there, that bullpen is starting to really kind of come into shape a little bit?
Yeah, it is. So Okendo is a returning guy that pitched 31 games for us last year, which was the most out of any pitcher on the staff. So he already has experience, and it just came out last night and pitched 3 scoreless innings against the Fireflies and kept that a 2-2 tie game, which allowed the Pelicans to score that winning run in the 11th. But just an experienced pitcher. He's got a great fastball, a couple of good secondary pitches as well. And then Santi. Now, Santi's struggled his past couple of outings, but when he first started in Single A, he had his curveball working, and just everything was going right for him. Didn't allow an earned run in his first 3 appearances, and has kind of taken a step back in his past couple of outings. So just working through some adversity, and it's going to be interesting to see how he, bounces back in his next outing. But there's a lot of good things to think about with Marino Santi. He's not the biggest guy on the mound, but has a great curveball that I really enjoy watching. A lot of vertical movement on that pitch, and it'll be exciting to see how he develops throughout the rest of the year.
Now, obviously, a name that you and I talked about last time that everybody's going to be watching, of course, is going to be Christian Hernandez. It seems like he's still kind of it seems like he's doing a little bit better lately, but obviously some growing pains down in Myrtle Beach.
He started off pretty well. The strikeout numbers were just very low, which was good to see, and something you don't typically see from a 19-year-old guy starting in full season baseball. Now, recently, those strikeout numbers have ticked up, but he's shown the power. He's got a couple of home runs, drives it gap to gap, makes good contact. And now that, it's always interesting in the beginning of the year because nobody really knows anything about anybody, where everyone's still getting those scouting reports on the pitchers. The pitchers are still getting the scouting reports on the hitters. And now that, there's some information to go off of, now we're going to be seeing how does Christian adjust as the season goes on, and what kind of adjustments is he going to make to his approach at the plate? Because right now he's striking out a little bit more than I think he wants to, but as the season goes on, it'll be interesting to see how those strikeout numbers go down, and hopefully the contact goes up.
It's funny, Sam, because for a while it seems like the Cubs didn't have much going on in the catching department in the minor leagues. Obviously, we have Miguel Amaya up in Chicago now, but it's been a rough path for him to get there. But it seems like when I look at the catching position now in the minors, it seems like they're developing more and more catchers. You guys got two down there in Moises Ballesteros and Miguel Fabrizio, and those guys look, pretty impressive so far, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, Ballesteros looks awesome. I mean, he's hitting over 300 right now. His OPS is over 900, 4 home runs. We knew he had the power coming into this year, but that's just grown immensely and just makes great contact. A lot of good decisions at the plate. Has a great approach when he comes up. It's hard to get him out, that's for sure. He is finding gaps in the field to get on base. Fabrizio came in as a catcher originally. He's now playing first base and DHing for the Pelicans right now, but had his first home run last night and has just really, been a solid power hitter at the plate. Miguel Pabon is our other catcher that usually it's him and Ballesteros that flip off, and Pabon has been awesome as well. I mean, the catching position for the Pelicans has been probably the strongest in the field so far this year. Pabon's hitting over 300. He's gotten on base in all but, I think, one game so far, and brings a lot of electricity into the clubhouse as well. So Pabon's a fun guy to watch, Ballesteros as well, and Fabrizio playing first and DHing has certainly been exciting so far.
Now, everybody here in Chicago is hollering. We finally got, Mervis up to Chicago, but now everyone wants Christopher Morel up here. Talk to me about Rafael Morel, his brother. I mean, we've talked before. Guys look exactly alike, and they both play multiple positions. But there's just an energy about those guys that just seems to be like infectious.
No, seriously. I mean, Rafael is always smiling, just like you see Christopher is. And I mean, you're right. Morel is willing to fit in at any position in the field. I think he's played everything except left field, right field, and first base so far this year, and obviously pitcher and catcher. But he's been all over the infield. Buddy's not afraid to put him in center field. Just getting a lot of experience, and which in turn is getting him at bats at the plate. And he's been pretty solid at the plate so far for the Pelicans this year. But yeah, just a really fun guy to be around. I was out. So back when we were at home, the Pelicans were taking batting practice, and I was out there kind of talking with the guys and just learning a few Spanish phrases because my Spanish is not great. So trying to learn as much as I can, and decided I'd try it out on Morel. And I said something, and he was pretty shocked. He was like, "Okay." He was happy that I was giving some Espanol to him. But yeah, just a really fun guy to be around, and excited to see how he progresses this year.
Yeah, just you got to root for those guys. They're just absolutely just wonderful. Now, one player, Reginald Preciado, we talked about with the Darvish trade and all that stuff. He really seems to be scuffling. What do you see going on there?
Well, I see a lot different of a player than what he was last year, in a good way, right? He's not striking out nearly as much as he was his first year with the Pelicans, and that first year was so strange because he gets hurt in June, right when he was kind of starting to figure things out, and then comes back to the Pelicans at the end of the year, but just didn't have enough time to get in that routine. Average doesn't look great right now, but again, he's making contact, and I think as the year goes on, you're going to start seeing some of those ground outs turn into hits, and he'll start finding places in the field to get on base. But the big encouraging thing for me with Preciado is he's not striking out nearly as much, and he's being a lot more selective. In Pelicans ballpark, when he hits there, he's had a couple of what would be home runs in other ballparks just not get out because Pelicans ballpark is such a pitcher's ballpark, and they usually hold him in. But just a lot more confident this year. I think once May kind of kicks in, he'll start to turn things around.
Now, as we talked about, you got a game today against Columbia, and then the boys come home for a 2-week homestand, Lynchburg and Augusta. So as you mentioned earlier, this is really a fun time to head down to Myrtle Beach as far as the weather is concerned. And if people haven't planned their vacations yet, Myrtle Beach is, obviously just Myrtle Beach on its own is a fun place to go to, and now you got good Cubs baseball there. What would you say as far as any of these upcoming series that you're really kind of looking forward as a measuring stick for the Myrtle Beach Pelicans?
Well, just certainly looking forward to watching them again and seeing just the amount of progression that's taken place in the past couple of weeks. And I just, like I said earlier, looking forward to seeing what adjustments the guys make at the plate now that the scouting reports are out. Pitchers know how to beat them, and just seeing how those hitters kind of adjust now and what happens. But we're really getting into the middle of the season now, and guys are getting their routines down and starting to figure some things out. So yeah, it'll be interesting to watch. That's for sure. 2 straight home weeks. I think the power numbers are certainly something that I'm going to be watching for because we we took on the Augusta Green Jackets in our last home series and didn't hit a single home run. And then we go to Charleston and hit 10 home runs. So, how's that field going to play? How many balls are going to leave the yard? And, our guys going to have enough power to get it out of there? I mean, I talked about Pelicans ballpark is such a pitcher's friendly ballpark. So, we'll see how those power numbers kind of get skewed, but that'll certainly be something I'm watching. But I mean, like you said, Crawly, it's going to be great weather, 2 straight weeks of Pelicans baseball, and a lot of great crowds that we're going to see out there.
Yeah, and if people don't know, you got Tuesdays, you got Corona and Modelo tacos and Tall Boys, another like Taco Tuesday. You got Wiener Wednesday, Thirsty Thursday with Budweiser. So just always, it seems like there's always something going on around the ballpark in Myrtle Beach.
And we do it like Myrtle Beach does it, right? There's always something going on in Myrtle Beach, and there's always something going on at a Pelicans game. Like you said, a lot of stuff to look forward to, and I mean, the crowds love it. The crowds are super energetic. The players love it. I mean, they certainly feel the energy from the home crowd when we play at Pelicans ballpark. So, just a super fun environment, and just can't wait for 2 straight weeks of it.
Now, we were talking off air a little bit. It's just so awesome because I said, today I was watching the Cubs game, and then when the game's over, I can then flip using the MLB app or the Bally's app and watch Myrtle Beach baseball. But obviously, when you guys get on Marquee, it's something special. When's the next Marquee showing for the Myrtle Beach Pelicans?
We have our next solo game is, I don't know the exact date, but I know it's that second week of the homestand. So that second week, we do have a road to Wrigley, I believe, next Friday or Saturday. So that'll be, those shows are always super fun to watch, and you get to catch up on all the affiliates. But a solo Marquee game in that next week of the homestand. And the exposure is great for the players. You get the fans that get to know these guys' names and, see how they play every day and kind of get to catch up with everybody. And it's just being on Marquee is the best thing ever. We love it. We love to put our brand out there and, make sure the Cubs fans know who we are. And there's so many different ways that you get to consume minor league baseball now, which I think is an awesome thing.
Well, Sam, I appreciate you jumping on here. We're hoping for a Pelicans win. And again, everybody's going to be watching, especially with those 2 young flamethrowers you got down there. There's a lot of excitement happening in Myrtle Beach, and we can't wait to catch it all.
A lot of excitement, a lot of great players on the team, and it's just going to be a fun season. Thanks so much for having me on, Crawly.
Take care, bud.
This is the Fly the W670 podcast. It's season 2. It's episode number 34. And Crawly, the Cardinals, and Contreras are coming to town. Wow, there is some news we need to discuss about Willson Contreras and the Cardinals as they come into Wrigley on this Monday.
It is the big story. And then as we look at it, it is stunning what has happened really quick for the Cardinals. Right now, Pittsburgh still in first place, but the NL Central has been hurting. The Pirates have lost 7 in a row, coming down to earth. They're 20-15. Milwaukee finally broke their losing streak. They're at 19-15, and then the Cubs are in third place at 500 again, but they're only 2.5 games back, so they've made a little bit of ground up. But the Cardinals are in the basement, 11-24. They had a 9-game losing streak. They snapped it today, but man, oh man, it is a wild one. And so last time we saw the Cardinals, there's been a few changes, one that we will definitely talk a little bit more about. But obviously, the key addition, the one that Cub fans have known about and circled this game for a long time, Willson Contreras playing with the Redbirds. They lost Jose Quintana and Corey Dickerson in the offseason free agency. They did re-sign Adam Wainwright, 1 more year for the old man. Nolan Arenado, shockingly, did not exercise his opt-out clause. And Yadier Molina retired, which is part of the story that we will talk about. Now, last season, the Cubs and Cardinals played 19 times, and the Cubs got dominated. They won 6 and they lost 13. They were 4-6 at Wrigley Field and 2-7 at Busch Stadium. The Cardinals, Dustin, last year were the first in the NL Central, 93 wins and 69 losses. So that's why I think it's just so stunning to see their record, is because of how good they were last year.
Yeah. The Cardinals, and I'm totally fine with it. They are really underperforming. Good. That's good news.
Right.
No problem. You're not going to hear me complain. I don't think you're going to hear any Cub fan complain about that.
No. The Cubs took 2 of 3 from the Marlins, like we talked about. The Cardinals lost 2 of 3 to the Tigers. I mean, think about that. They did win today's game 12-6. It was a weird, crazy back and forth game. So we'll see what happens today. So, we do have the pitching probables, Dustin.
Let's take a look at them.
We got game 1. It is Marcus Stroman versus Miles Mikolas. We know all about the Stro show because it has been fun to watch. What hasn't been fun to watch is the offense when that guy pitches because they have been giving him no run support. Last game he got a no decision, 6 innings. He gave up 1 run. The last game he was at 428 in Miami went 6.1. He got a no decision, gave up 2 runs. And then against the Dodgers, he got a loss. That was his worst start of the year. He gave up 5 runs. So he has looked really good. Now, with Miles Mikolas, I'm just going to say this, is that he started awful in April. He has gotten better as of late. So if you sit here and you just say to yourself, oh, Miles Mikolas is 1-1 with a 5.79 ERA, we should really go to town on this guy. Just kind of be aware that in the last few starts, it hasn't been horrible. Against the Angels on 5-3, he gave up 3 runs. Against the Giants, he went 6 innings. He gave up no runs. Against Seattle, he went 5 innings and gave up 3 runs, 5.1 innings. So he has looked better. So I wouldn't go about just absolutely thinking just because you're looking at a guy who has a bad ERA or doesn't have a lot of wins that he's necessarily that is going to be an easy matchup. I think Miles Mikolas for many, many years has given not many, many years, but for plenty of years, he's given the Cubs some issues. So I'm hoping that they come out there. When you look here, Tucker Barnhart's had 14 at-bats. It's 357 against them. Eric Hosmer, 16 at-bats, 375. Nico Horner, 16 at-bats, 375. And Eric Hosmer has 11 at-bats at 455. And Dansby Swanson, 11 bats, 273. So some guys have some good numbers against Mikolas. Against Stro, the numbers don't look as great. Edmund, the shortstop, 14 at-bats, 429. Paul Goldschmidt, we're going to talk about him plenty. 18 at-bats, 444 against Stro. And then,
can we just go like this with him? Just walk every time. Just
walk him.
Go to first.
Lars Nootbaar is the guy we're going to have to talk about too. 10 at-bats against Stro, 300. So on both sides, you got some guys that have some pretty decent numbers against the opposing pitcher.
Nootbaar, gotta love that name for an athlete.
Right. That takes us to game 2, Jack Flaherty and Jameson Taillon. So we saw Jameson finally come back from that injury, that groin injury that he had, and we knew that it was going to be a little bit of rust. So you don't take that much out of it, but he hasn't had a real great start that you would say for the Cubs this year, and so hopefully he starts to kind of pick it up. He's played, there's 4 games, 5.29 ERA, 0-2. Against the Nationals, he went 3 innings. He looked really good, but he had 1 inning where he gave up the 2 singles and then a 3-run blast. That's all he really gave up, but that was enough, He had 4 strikeouts. Against the Dodgers, which I think was his best game of the season, that was on 415. He went 5 innings, gave up 2 hits and no runs, so clearly that was his best start. And then he struggled against the Texas on 4-9, so that was 5 innings pitched, 6 hits, 4 runs. So, it hasn't been the greatest start of the season, but you know what? On the other side, hasn't been that great for Jack Flaherty. Jack Flaherty is one of those guys, Dustin, that I thought was really going to be a great pitcher. You know how Cardinals always tend to churn those out. And he's just had a lot of injuries. It's never really kind of come down. His last start against the Angels was a disaster. 2.1 innings pitched. He gave up 9 hits, 10 earned runs. Against the Dodgers, he went 4.2. He gave him 7 hits, 4 earned runs. And against Seattle, 6 innings pitched, 5 hits, 3 earned runs. So, very, very clear that the guy is struggling, and hopefully the Cubs can take advantage of that and hoping that Taillon has, a better start than he had last time. Wasn't bad, but definitely need to do better. When we look at the matchups against here, the Cubs against Flaherty don't have a lot of good numbers, but then again, this is not the Flaherty of old. Not a lot of guys have a ton of at-bats either. The Moster Barnhart has a 100 average against him in 10 at-bats, and Bellinger has a .091 average in 11 at-bats. So maybe give Nelson Velasquez a start here. I know you want to do a lot of things, and get a consistent lineup, but some of these guys need a day off. That might be a day for Bellinger to take a day off.
That's a decent idea. That's a decent idea.
And then against Taillon, the Cardinals don't have a lot of experience. Willson Contreras has 15 at bats. He's only hitting 200 against them. Paul DeJong, 13 at bats, 308, and Nolan Arenado 6 with 500. And shockingly, Dustin, Paul Goldschmidt only hits 167 against Tyone, but only 6 at bats.
I like those numbers, though. Gotta like that.
We'll take them.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Game 3, our guy, the Bulldog, Justin Steele, going up against Jordan Montgomery. We talked earlier about Justin Steele being absolutely one of the best pitchers in baseball right now. He is just dominating in the last 3 games against Miami. 7 innings pitched, 1 earned run against Miami again. 6 inning pitch, 2 earned run against San Diego, 5.1, 0 earned runs. The guy is clearly, I would say easily the best pitcher on this team right now. And that's really saying something because the Cubs have a pretty good pitching staff.
Oh, yeah, Steele. Come on. Guy, we talked about it in the first segment of the show, right? I mean, all-star game maybe. Maybe the starter.
Maybe starter, yeah.
All-star game is almost a gimme at this point, but maybe the starter.
Jordan Montgomery, so far this season, he's 2-4 with a 3.29, but the same thing that I was talking about with Miles Michaelis. Bad start, picking it up lately. He went 6 innings against Detroit, gave up 6 hits, 2 earned runs. He was a no decision. Against the Dodgers, he went 6.2, 5 hits, 1 earned run, and against San Francisco, 0-1, 6.1. He got the loss. He went 6 innings, and he gave up 5 hits, 0 earned runs. So, I mean, it's just been a bad start, but he has been really doing well as of lately. So, again, when you look at the numbers with some of these Cardinals pitchers, bad start, doing a lot better right now. I mean, he had 1 start against Arizona where he gave up 7 runs, and that really hurt his ERA. So that kind of gives you an idea where they're at.
All right, Crawly, let's fast forward a little bit. Let's talk about the other headline from this series, right? Willson Contreras, we've mentioned that coming back, but there is some unbelievable news about Willson Contreras and what he's going to be doing for the Cardinals moving forward, at least right now. He is no longer going to be squatting behind the plate for the Cardinals. They are moving him to the primary DH role, and every once in a while you'll play a corner outfield, and then, if we get desperate, we'll have you squat again behind the plate. So maybe, just maybe, and I'll raise my hand, is, okay, I was wrong. The Cubs made the right move by not bringing him back, especially at this price.
Anybody that listened to this podcast, I got one thing absolutely right, and I got one thing absolutely wrong. I said there's no way the Cardinals are signing Willson Contreras. I was not worried about it. I was yawning, and I'll tell you why, Dustin. Because he doesn't fit the model of what the Cardinals do. His strength was in his hitting. He was one of the best hitting catchers besides JT Realmuto. But you know what? And it's what we looked at the numbers last season. Every Cubs pitcher, when they were throwing to Yan Gomes, was a full ERA, a full run better in their ERA than when Contreras was catching them, other than Marcus Stroman, who had like a bizarre season just in general last year. But I know I told you what he can't do. I told you he's not really good at framing, and he's gotten better at it. But I also told you he's not good at game prepping, game planning, all the things that Yan Gomes is great at. And that's the direction Cubs were looking. I said they were going run prevention, and having Willson Contreras behind the plate is not going to help in run prevention. Now, what the Cardinals GM was thinking, because remember, there's 2 teams interested. There's the Cardinals and Houston said you're not getting Martin Maldonado's our catcher. He's great doing all those things that I talked about. The Yan Gomes does great. It's what a lot of teams are looking for in their catchers. And the Cardinals. And I said, I was shocked. I said I thought that Willson was gonna sign with Houston and be the primary DH. And the Cardinals said, no, we're going to let you be the primary catcher. You're going to catch every day. You're taking over for Yadier Molina. And I said that was going to be a huge mistake. The Cardinals were going to regret it. Willson was going to regret it because he was going to hear about it. The fact that they pulled the plug as quick as they did surprised me. But
it's May the what, Crawly? It's May the 8th? I mean, come on.
You know what they say? Pennants aren't won in April, but they definitely are lost. And you're very much in danger of falling out of contention here. And this was the emergency move that they had to make here. And so John Mosaic was talking. He talked to Katie Wu from The Athletic, And he said, at first they said, oh, yeah, we're going to have him play outfield. Now they walked that back. And so
it looks like just a primary DH role.
Primary DH. And the quotes in here are interesting when I looked at this. And it's everything I told people about Willson Contreras. You know what? I didn't want to lose Rizzo. I thought he would have been a good bridge guy. And you know what? They got some great pieces for him. I didn't want to lose Bryant because I thought his skill sets would age well. He's had injury histories, but
coward. He's a coward.
I don't think so. He's a coward. But
he's a coward. He went to Colorado to retire.
Baez is a guy that I thought that his skill set would diminish as he got older. I thought that he was really good because of his freak athletic ability, but I knew that wasn't going to play over a long term. But I never once cared that Willson Contreras was leaving. Not once. And the quotes here are absolutely crazy. And this is what Mosaic said. He said, obviously the Cardinals were used to one guy behind the plate for close to 2 decades. The nuances of that position, maybe very subtle, are what a lot of pitchers were used to. What we're seeing was a lack of confidence. Normally you say, why don't you address this in spring training? But it's different. Pitchers are going a couple innings. It didn't count. But here's where it's really damning to me. With this, we noticed a lot of puzzling trends we know we need to fix. We know we need to address it. We just decided to do it head on. Put it out there. Do we think we've seen Willson catch his last game? No, but this is going to take a little time to get him where he feels he understands the expectations of what the role is. And here it is right here. I'm going to give you the quote here. There are many parts of our team right now that are not performing what we expected. I do think the nuances of the catching side, we haven't had to spend a lot of energy thinking about because of what Yadi did for us. You know that saying, you sometimes feel like you had a coach on the field. That's Yadi. That's how we thought. Even though you might have a game plan, Yadi had the ability to allow that to evolve during a game. Real-time decision-making. And that's what Willson complained about. If you remember, he complained about he would change the game plan up from what Tommy Hotovy and what Chris Young were. The Cubs have always kind of been very hands-on on what the game planning was, and Willson would kind of go off script. And they did not like that about Willson. No. And Yadi is somebody that was able to do that. The Cardinals gave him that. It was like having a coach on the field. And so, they think Willson can do the same thing. And they didn't know that that is one of his weaknesses. It's ridiculous that they made a long-term deal on something like that and not realize that he can't do what they want him to do.
Listen, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens tonight, Monday night, at Wrigley Field when he comes up to bat for the first time. You would assume he's going to be in the lineup as the DH. I like the guy. He meant a lot to the Cubs. The fanboy in me didn't want to see him leave, but you were right. The front office was right. So here we go. All right, Crawly, prediction time. Cubs, Cardinals, first time this year, 3 games at Wrigley. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking the Cubs take 2 out of 3. I think it's going to be a crazy series. What they say about the Cubs-Cardinals series. Doesn't matter. Throw out the records when these two teams play. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be a wild one.
I agree. I'm with you. 2 out of 3. And we'll get back together right here on the Fly the W podcast. We will recap it all. It should be super emotional. So that's a wrap. Don't forget to listen, download, review, most importantly, subscribe to the Fly the W 670 podcast. Follow the socials, Fly the W on Facebook and on Instagram. Email flythew670gmail.com and watch us YouTube by subscribing to the 670 The Score YouTube channel. Crawly, have a great week. We will talk midweek after the Cubs and Cardinals wrap things up.
Absolutely. I will be at the game on Monday, so I will be reporting on all things Willson Contreras, and we'll see what happens. But nothing makes me happier than beating the Cardinals. So with that, go Cubs! Hey guys, it's Crawly. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date with our latest episodes. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Go Cubs!